Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. Again, I'm with the fellas.
What's up?
Martel.
That's right.
Mike Wright.
And on this episode, we're going to talk about expectations versus reality. Where we want to start off?
Well, let's start off with reality. No, I'm just joking. I don't know. No, why don't you frame it a little bit for us, though, Martel? I mean, as you say, expectation versus reality. I mean, some people will take that in a whole multiple directions. So,
yeah. So pretty much my thoughts going into this particular subject, expectation versus reality. Well, I guess it's two parts. I was thinking, you guys ever seen like on Instagram or Facebook, TikTok, whatever, where they have like the expectation is this super polished picture, and then the reality is like somebody with a big gun, that kind of thing. When I thought about the subject, I was kind of thinking about that, but more so in terms of, I think I should do these things, or I think my life is supposed to look this way. Like I've written out exactly how I want everything to be versus what God wants it to be. Like what it's supposed to be based on how He built you and what you're supposed to do on this earth. And so, like it makes me think about the Joseph story. Like, you know, he got the dream. He got the dream in the beginning. You guys will bow to me. It's just gonna happen. Like that was in the dream. They didn't like that. And what he could not have possibly expected was that he was gonna have to go through all these different things, and it was gonna take so long for him to see it. He finally got to that point where he could actually see the dream, and it had manifested into reality. And so, like, I feel like a lot of times, like, we have these expectations for how things are supposed to be in life. I'm supposed to marry this lady. She's supposed to look like this. She's about to be this size. She's supposed to be doing these things. And I'm supposed to have this job that's going to give me this income. And it's supposed to be this way to get there. But then the reality is, all this is going to knock you out. This is going to take you off your mark. Actually, the person who would be perfect for you looks like this and not like that. Yeah. She's going to actually rob you. And that's how you ended up with the first wife. Yeah. See, expectation versus reality.
Yeah, you know, and I love the fact you talked about Joseph. And this, so everybody knows, he's not talking about Joseph down the street. He's talking about Joseph in the Bible, okay? And just a quick little recap on the story. Like you said, Joseph had that dream. His brothers hated on him, wanted to kill him, threw him in the hole, wound up selling him off to slavery, and that's all that stuff you're talking about. He went through in prison, and all this other stuff, and boom, became like the man over everything. But that was the reality he had to go to based on the expectation that was coming. But what I love about the topic is this, you know, we all have expectations on what we want to do. And one thing that came to my mind was that, you know, sometimes we could think too small and our expectations are too small because we so hung up on what we think reality is. Okay. So using the Joseph example again, Joseph had that dream. Now, he could have let his view of reality squash that dream and never think it was going to come about. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we all expect God to bless us in a way and grow what we're doing. But if we say in reality, oh, no, you know what, if my view of reality is too, like, I can't do that. That's too big for me. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. So now my expectations go down with my view of reality.
Yeah. Our expectation and God's reality.
Yeah. Key. Yep.
And I think it's important that when we create our own expectations, that we understand, really, we can have a plan, but we don't control, like, pretty much everything.
Yeah.
We can only control our mindset on what we're about to face or currently facing. Some things are just gonna happen the way it's supposed to happen. And I think the challenge comes in where, let's say bad things happen. Slavery, that's a good example. I'll say, like,
I'll definitely put that in the bad things.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, that's one of the bad things, right? And I never, to be honest, I still don't have clarity on this answer, and I may never will, but I always thought, like, man, how could this happen, you know? And there's many theories on why, this happened and why, God didn't step in and allow this to go on for generations. And I don't have the answers to that. So that's, I'm not going to give any breaking news or anything. But what I can say is, going back to my original point, what we can do is try to work on our mind frame on what the reality is that we're facing and how we face that. Some things we gotta just go through. And we don't understand why, but we have to believe that there is a divine plan because God has put a purpose in all of us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So what we can't control is, okay, how does our journey look upon arrival to that plan, to that point?
All right.
I think, so I had in football in high school, I had a coach, his name was Coach Gilbert. Great coach. Actually, the best coach I've had, like before that and since. Coach Gilbert, he had a bunch of sayings, he had a bunch of different principles that he would go by, that he would share to us. But the one that I remember the most, like that has just been echoed through ever since I was coached by him, was control the controllables.
Yes.
I think it's absolutely perfect, and I also believe that that's what God expects us to do, because the thing is, it's God's reality. God knows the big picture. God knows how He built you. God knows what it's supposed to map out to if you do what He tells you to do. Okay, but the outcome is never in our control. So like I can work super hard on something. I can go do all these things, or I can I've got my ideal vision of who my wife is supposed to look like, what she's supposed to sound like, where she's supposed to be, where I'm supposed to find her at, and I can go force this so much. I can go push and push and push, and I'm gonna go to this specific place and I'm gonna find her. But the thing is, I don't control her. I don't control her showing up to this place. If I'm trying, and even if I find someone that I'm with, and I might have my expectation for what they are supposed to be like, and I can't change them. That's not in my control. Okay. But what I can do, controlling the controllables, is continue to develop myself. I can get my screening process better. I can focus on how I'm personally developing in every other area of my life. I can focus on where I am. What am I going to do to see if I could possibly make this thing work? But I can't control the other person's outcome.
So in a way, I'm just listening to how you describe that, control the controllables. Can sometimes, I'm just asking this question, I can answer it too, but do we let other people kind of set our expectations or frame our reality? Do we allow?
I think a lot of times we do. I think a lot of times, especially, but it's built in the system. Think about it. The kids, you're a product of your environment. The school systems, they're set up a certain way. They're going to teach you certain things. And so everything is coming into our mind. And that's why we have to be very strategic on what we allow to enter our wavelength, our mental wavelength. And one thing that I heard in the past, they were saying that you have to have what's called like a wealth diet for your mind, body, and soul. Because, we know if we have a eating diet of donuts, cookies, and ice cream, it's going to result in a certain way of looking, right? And it's going to come through us.
It's going to result in fat.
No. If that's the diet, So we have to think about our mental as the same way. If we're constantly consuming the news all day, social media all day, negative people just all day, this is what you're doing day in and day out. What do you feel is going to come out of you? What ideas are going to be distributed?
Well, and I joke and said fat, but in reality, when you consume, what you consume, they say you are what you eat.
Yes.
And so what you consume is what you become.
Yes.
It's...
And going back to your point, do we allow other people to shape these realities? We really do. And we have to be very careful of that, even us as leaders and parents, because there's so much power in the tongue and what we speak into each other. I could come to you guys and say, look, man, I got this really great idea. I want to buy houses. And you guys, if you don't have an appetite for it, you can give me a million reasons of why it wouldn't work. Just because you don't have an appetite. And that conversation could shape my next move and distort the whole reality. It could completely take me off course if I let it.
Yeah.
Right? And so we have to be mindful of that when we're speaking and engaging others and make sure that we're encouraging people.
Man, that key word that you said, encouragement, because as you were saying that, I was just thinking about how sometimes people see, you share your expectations, they know you got a drive, and they will try to shrink your expectations, and sometimes try to stifle you, knowingly and unknowingly. I mean, think about, you got kids, so if your kids come to you and say they want to be the president of the United States. Now I know you say, hey, you can do it. You should explain to them, hey, you kind of help them believe in that, and maybe they strive for it one day. But it's easy too to turn around and say, you ain't gonna never be the president. You know what I'm saying? Or either you have a teacher that tells you, because I remember, in school I was taking physics, and there's only 2 people that look like me in my class. And the teacher told us, we only had 1 test. Now I ain't do the greatest on the test. But he told me, I don't think you're gonna pass this class. I'm like, what? And he told the other black guy in the class the same thing. So he was trying to make our expectations low that we would drop the class. You follow me? Yeah. So some people can try to squash your expectations.
I wanna laser focus, still in the context of expectation versus reality, but I wanna laser focus on that response that you said about your kid comes up to you and says, I want to be the president of the United States. That response, you said, possibly Mike might respond, yeah, you can do it. But let's think about expectation versus reality here. What is in the person's control? Maybe God didn't create that kid to be the president of the United States. True. So the reality is they weren't built to do that thing. So you might not be able to do it.
But as a child, though, you don't know.
You don't know.
And that's the key where you're shaping a process in this kid or this person. It doesn't even have to be a kid. It's a process of doing things. Regardless, because like you said earlier, the outcome is really irrelevant. That's not for us to decide. But what we're doing is we're controlling our controllables, which in this instance, what are our inputs? What are we bringing to the table? Really, it's your mindset, your effort, things like that. That's all the only thing that you can really be in control. The fastest man alive, he may not actually be the fastest man alive. He's just the fastest man on record. The other guy may have got injured in high school. Yeah. We were just talking about a similar situation. Yeah. He may have been the fastest guy alive, but that may not have been his purpose in life. And so it had to pivot, and then for you to find your true purpose, right?
Gotcha.
I'm wondering, so okay, let's go back. Let's stay on that because I think we're really getting somewhere. If we take the kid and the parent scenario, and the parent becomes God and the kid becomes us.
Okay.
I'm telling God I want to be the greatest real estate guy ever, right? I'm like, God, I'm praying for this. I want to be the biggest in real estate. I want every single house to be owned by me on the planet. And I'm really praying about this, and I'm serious about it. When a kid comes to you and say, I want to be the president of the United States. I'm going to be the president of the United States. And they're not factoring in all the other things. They don't know the reality that you've lived to see, maybe that might not be what you want, But they're going at it. They're like, I'm going to be the president of the United States. But the parent knows, I understand you and how you're built a little bit better than what you might understand right now. And I know this other lane right here, you gonna kill it. That lane right there might not be it. So God being the parent, us being the kid, what is the correct response?
That's funny. So, because I go through this often, actually. But it's funny. It's funny because I know exactly like the path you're hitting down, but I think we have to be careful doing that. Even as parents and God working through us, we have to be careful because ultimately we really don't know. We may know this is the skill set you're showing at the moment, but we don't know what your true purpose is. Sometimes that's not revealed until years and years. Sometimes as parents, we like, man, I never would have known this kid was gonna do this. I didn't know. You know, it just showed him one day, and it is what it is. You know, and so this is where I go back to the process steps where my kid, for example, let's say he comes to me and says, hey, I want to do this. What I do tell him is I say, anytime you ask me for something or you tell me what you want, be prepared to explain, okay, what's the plan of attack? What we gonna do to get you there? And I get them thinking about it even at a very early age because I want you in the process of thinking steps. Like I sent that picture this week about the ladder, and it showed the little small steps, and the guy was almost at the top versus someone else it was huge steps, and they were still at the bottom because they're like, how do I take this huge step? And that's where I think most people get caught up in trying to do the major big things in their mind versus just taking the small steps and letting it take you wherever you're supposed to be.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, I love that response, and I'm thinking about too the whole God, who is our Father, right? What would He say? And I think Mike gave the example, kind of you don't know, but in this case, God does know. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I believe honestly, God prepares us for what He has for us, right? So as far as expectations go, I believe honestly we don't know what's all in us. So what I expect to happen to me this year, I didn't have that expectation 5 years ago. So I think it changes. I think as God works in us, as He kind of pours different things in us, then our expectations should be changing. We should be expecting more every time. And when I say more, the more we trust Him, we should be expecting Him to have us do more, to have us work to grow His kingdom more. And the reality is, it comes in as we walk in that expectation, it should start to manifest itself.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, the only other thing that I was going to say is that too often we stay in the same place, and our expectations don't change.
I think, because I'm really trying to boil down, because this is real time. This is a real time conversation where we're developing this thing. If I'm trying to think about what would God say, if I came to God and I was adamantly praying to make me the president of the United States, what would He say? Because if I'm thinking about Joseph, right? If Joseph got the vision. He had the vision. He was like, all right, so I'm in a hole. What's up?
well, God's when we pray to God, He does one of three things. He makes clear yes, no, and not right now. One of those three things is going to be His response. Sometimes when it's not right now, He's saying wait. So if we pray to God, He's going to answer our prayer. And He might say, all right, president ain't for you, Rodney. I mean, I used a race car driver for myself. I wanted to be a race car driver growing up. At some point, I don't know if it's God or not. It's probably
God didn't tell you no, Rodney.
He didn't, but I still plan on doing it. But let me use another example. Let's say this. If I wanted to be a pro basketball player, that's my expectation. At some point, life is going to tell me no, because God didn't give me the gifts for it. At some point, the gifts God's giving you are going to tell you what you can and cannot do.
I think it's the answer is a mixture between what both of you are saying. I really do, because if I'm coming into it and I'm asking about this thing, or I'm asking for this thing that God knows better than me about, you're saying it's the process, and you're saying you're built a certain way, and so it's like you can, or I didn't build you to do that.
I think that you gotta be careful though, because it's a lot of guys. I'm thinking about Isaiah Thomas, not the Piston legend, but the other guy. He's like 5'7" or 8" or something.
Lamar Bowles.
Muggsy Bogues, 5'3".
Yeah.
Traditionally, he wasn't built to be an NBA player. And he said, look, every step, they told him like, you can't do this. That made him work harder. Yeah. So it's like, did he force his will to create that, or was that all a part of God's plan in the first place?
Honestly, it's all part of God's plan. He had gifts. His gifts got him his speed, his exceptional jumping ability, his heart, all that. God gave him all that.
Definitely.
Sometimes I firmly believe your gifts aren't going to be revealed unless you're really willing to push past certain ceilings.
Agreed.
Going back to the president question, Barack Obama was literally the first black man to ever actually accomplish that, right? I remember it was, like grandmothers and great-grandmothers like literally shedding tears because they never fathomed a time that they were still living that this was going to actually happen. Yep. And a lot of younger folks, they may not have understood the magnitude of why that was so impactful, right? But me going back to our example of slaves, let's say a Frederick Douglass, what he did was mind-blowing. I mean, he was born a slave, and before he died, he ended up being one of the closest advisors to the President of the United States.
Huge.
Yep.
It's unheard of. And it's like, how the audacity for you to even think you could do something like that being born in your circumstances. And this is why I say we have to be careful when we advise our loved ones, because sometimes I think out of love, you want to make sure they're safe. You don't want to see somebody hurt. Yeah. You don't want them to put everything they have and still not be enough. But that's not really for us to decide. And I think it has to be a very challenging conversation with yourself at times. Got to put your ego to the side, and you have to sometimes you have to be supportive when you don't fully understand.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Mike. There's two pieces of this, though. One is God, our communication with him and what he's telling us. And two is us communicating with one another and making sure we're not being that person who is like kind of squashing somebody's dream because we don't really understand what their true expectations can be. The other part of it, I think, Martell, is when you ask the question too, is focusing on God and knowing that, okay, are we listening to him? Are we allowing him to set our expectations? You know what I mean? That's so it's twofold. I think you dead on. We have to be careful when we communicate with anybody who has a dream. Because I got a friend, he got a dream to do A, B, C, and D. And I always say, hey, man, go do it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to be that guy to tell you you can't do it. If you want to do it, then go do it. Do what you got to do to do it. Because I don't know, he could change. But at the same time, like for what we do, we talk about all the time, it's like, hey, I got to tell him. He got to give me direction, And in my mind, I got to make sure I got God-sized dreams. I got God-sized expectations. That's my dilemma personally, is that I need to make sure I don't think so small and make the expectations so small that it's me and not God.
I think that goes back to submitting fully to God and understanding that God is working through you. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yes.
That's when your dreams can be very abundant and you can say it with full confidence. No, this is what I'm striving to do because it's not for the glory of me, it's for us. I'm serving for the greater good.
Yep.
I know you was.
I think we don't have the right to truly build this ginormous expectation without checking in with the creator of of us.
Yeah.
The thing is, I 100%, I think if we're gonna answer that question, what would God say in that situation? Like where would he go? I think it always goes back to all things work together for the good of those that love God, who are the called according to his purpose.
Yes.
So if I'm going to ask God for something major, like I've got this, I want to do this with my life, I think God's going to automatically go back to, okay, here's This is my word. This is what this. Have you checked in with my word, and have you looked at the principles that are going to work for you regardless? Right. These are the laws that are built into the universe.
Yep.
And then, on Coach Mike's point, get moving. Yeah. Develop the process. I already laid out the blueprint for what you need to do. So just work the process each day. Now you have your expectations of things. You have your idea of where things are going to go. I know exactly what you were built for, but you're not going to be able to see it fully because I only know that. I only know the people you're going to meet, how you're going to affect situations, or what it's going to look like at the end. But you just need to start moving.
Yo, that's the key. I think that's the most critical part. You gotta start moving, and you can't stop. And you have to trust that all things will be revealed at the right time. But if you stop moving, and you were supposed to be in this spot, but you're still here because you never got started, you might miss your blessing. Not miss, it may be delayed.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you're gonna miss what's for you. But I do believe it can be delayed if you're not ready for it.
So man, we've been on this expectation side, and I think we broke it down pretty good. But the reality side is, we say versus reality. I think reality is pretty straightforward. Reality is what actually has happened. You know what I mean? It's like that. The expectations can lead to us doing things that become real. You know what I mean? And so the versus is reality. We always say reality. We can unfortunately allow reality, things that happened in the past, to cause us to not think certain things can happen in the future.
I think because the part of it, when we have expectations, this is kind of another word for like our dreams or aspirations. Will we agree? The reality can be different because in our dreams, we don't feel pain. I've never felt real pain in my dream. In reality, sometimes you going to reach your real goal may be painful. Nobody said it was going to be easy or painless. It might be what's meant for you, but that's not to say you ain't going to feel no pain getting there.
Okay.
And that's to me, that's the difference.
You say
because
the walk there is the reality of the getting there is gonna be, there's gonna be some pain and some
yeah, because it's what, February 11th. All the people that had the New Year's resolution, new year, new me, new body, workout plan. It's about, I'm willing to guess about half, at least half of y'all
dropped out.
Yeah, y'all done dropped out, and then the rest are coming. They're coming quick because the expectations are different than the reality. When you were dreaming about the new body, that's not the way it feels every day. You got to really feel something to have some type of change.
That's it. The thing is, it's crazy. The reality, like you were saying, like, yeah, we have our expectation. Joseph, again, he had the vision, but the reality was you were going to have to go through these things. So a lot of us, we have, like, I know personally, I know that I've got a major vision, right? But I can't possibly set an expectation for what it's going to look like to get there. Because what I've realized is, one, if I had everything that I ever wanted and I had the vision right now, I'd most likely mess it up. I would mess it up. And the thing is, God's going to have to take you through certain things so that you can become the person you need to be to actually get what he has for you. And so that process, that's the reality.
I'm glad you framed it that way. And going back to Joseph, because one thing he said towards the end, when his brothers had to come to him, and he was to get food and all that, he revealed that, hey, I'm Joseph and all that. And they're like, oh man, they thought he was gonna lash out. But he made a statement saying that, hey, what you had in mind for bad, God had in mind for good, for his purpose, really. So, that journey, that the reality is you go through this journey that God places you on, the reality of it, to get to a certain spot, but you can't expect.
So the person who is out there, who's been working on something, who is really beating themselves up because it doesn't look like what they expected it was going to look like. They prayed for a perfect marriage. They prayed for the perfect spouse, but the person that they got doesn't necessarily look the way that they thought she or he was supposed to look. But the thing is,
well, she for man for her. I just want to make sure. All right.
The expectation in our head was supposed to look one way, but God created you to be a leader, a cultivator. God created you to love. God created you. This isn't about manhood, this episode right here. But the one thing is, you can tell a lot about a man if you look at his wife.
Yes.
Because you're the leader. So what she has, what's reflected onto her says a lot about who you are. So she came to you this way, and you've been with her for 26 years. Now what is she? Is she worse than when she started, or is she better?
Man, it's
deep.
funny. It's funny, no, but it's funny that you say. I always say that. Like when you go to these little couple events and things, I always sit back when guys are speaking, and in my peripheral, I always watch to see like how the nonverbal and body language of the wife, because they're gonna tell you everything. If his words aren't aligned to his actual actions, she's gonna let you know. All the time. It never fails. And it's funny that you said that, because I think it's the same way, man. It's like you can't, your family, period, your kids, everything is a reflection of you. You can't be out here shining and flossing for the world and making it seem like it's all good. But like you say, your wife is in shambles or disheveled, and your kids looking dusty. You got the little baby kid dragging a diaper. It's like, what's going on? Everything has to be in unison.
Yeah.
And you have to look at it like, anything I give myself, I got to be giving to my family first.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's you. That's your wife.
That's
is
a
piece of you.
reflection. Yeah.
You're supposed to be one.
Yeah.
Man, I can't believe how quickly we go through these topics.
Yeah.
But man, I think we're at that point where we got to kind of bring it home a little bit.
Let's do it.
All right, so now you're our closer.
Because shoot, I think we did cover a lot of ground in this, to be honest, like with expectation versus reality, because that question of, okay, if I'm gonna go to God and ask God for this thing, just taking the same scenario as the kid and the parent, if I'm gonna go to God about this, what is he gonna say? Okay, and he's gonna tell me that it's in alignment with his will, and he's gonna give me the process for how to get to the vision that he has for my life, because it's gonna work out for the big picture.
Yep.
So our expectations, we need to hold them as tight as a piece of paper, okay? Because they can change, because you don't know the actual end picture. You don't know the process that you have to go through to get to the place that God wants you to be in. So the reality is all you got to deal with. And in that reality, we got to control what we can control in it.
Yeah. And one thing I want to just add on to that, Martell, is everything is happening in divine order and perfect timing. I once heard the saying that a blessing too soon is not a blessing at all. So it's just one thing, if it feels like, things aren't flowing the way you need them to flow right now in this moment, just understand that it's not punishment, it's preparation. And hopefully it's preparing you for what's to come.
Man, no, I love that quote. That's a Mike classic right there.
My classic.
We got to start publishing Mike classics. Nah, good stuff.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our episode for today. Expectations versus reality. Make sure that it is in alignment with God's will. And if you are that parent and your kid comes to you and they ask, they tell you, I want to be the president of the United States, Dad. Do you immediately say, oh, yeah, you can do it. Just go for it. Or do you say, absolutely not, you can't do it. Or you give them the process. You give them some steps to take. Because those steps are going to help them to understand more of who they are and what they are capable of doing. And if they are meant to be the president of the United States, they're going to get there if they follow the process.
If it's meant to be.
If it's meant to be.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Martel,
That's right.
Mike Wright.
and we certainly hope to see you next week.